So I will start with my pill.
Sure.
My deep experience of today is when you really love a nation, your nation, or your continent, as in my case is Europe, or your planet, in our case is Earth, you cannot love all the others, because you recognize through love that you are part of a system of nations, you are part of a system of continents, you are part of a solar system. So my experience in this focus on Europe is to discover the whole, and through, it's just as when a mother learns to love through the instinctual love for her kid, possibly she has to learn to love all the children, and by experience. So yeah, I profoundly love my nation, my continent, my planet, my infinite, our infinite. Thank you.
I can continue this, Antonella. My experience right now in the meditation was exactly this, a love for Europe. When, you know, our focus on Europe, and especially the meditations, we will get to know, I can feel that we are getting to know in a very intimate way this continent, whatever we focus on. Here it is Europe now. We get into a subtle, delicate experience of the whole entity. So this is not only a continent, not only a political conglomerate or something, but really an entity that, so as we had a meditation now, it was like a love relationship starting to build with Europe. Thank you.
And Andrea says in the chat, I'll just read out here, when we aligned the group mind, heart, and will in Alexander's meditation, we became a radiant sun within a greater sun and watched as it took its place above the European nations. It brought illumination into the shadows and melted the glaciers of division and the history of dividing borders and ideologies. This created a synthetic body of united flowing water that nourished the totality of Europe with love and harmony. Thank you, Andrea. Beautiful.
Hi, so this is Natalia, and I also would like to share my pearl. As Antonella and Jutta were talking about love, I always traveling a lot around the world, but also Europe. I find myself many times in a place where I feel at home. I mean, like I really feel at home, and then I wonder, like, okay, but then we are born in this country, and when we study the books, the blue books, it's like we are placed in this country, and the way I see it is that for us to honor that heritage, and how can we serve in the place that we are born, and it was put in our lives for us to be of service. And the other thing that I would like to share, it's like the meditative attitude that Alexander was sharing. If we hold this on our hearts and minds, it's a big step. Thank you.
I don't remember exactly where. It's one of the passages where DK talks about the Jewish problem. There's a phrase that's long ago really inspired me, and I even shared it with Uta the first time I met her, is that that we all take our turns to get born in the Jewish body, and so it's kind of to be on a duty, whoever is in that body is in that incarnation. And that made me think is that yes, it's even though each of us now affiliated deeply and has a deep love to own nation, it's just it's a duty station in this lifetime. And as much humor we can have about our glamours of the previous incarnations, but in this case, it might be helpful just to have certain recollections and recognitions of being in a different body, in a different place. And we know that it's true, regardless of any specific so-called memories, but it's true. It's we've been in probably in most of these European nations, and we've probably been on the both sides of each divide and conflict, which are plenty.
Yes, good point, Alexander. The Tibetan reminds us of the relationship of the Jews and the Germans in World War II, and how they've both been incarnate, each other have been incarnate in their various cultures, and also the British and the Indians as well, that their squabble is a family squabble, family of humanity. So we get to have these many, many incarnations in different nations. I feel just as attuned to Europe as I do to the USA and other places I've lived around the world, such as Australia, New Zealand, Southeast Asia. I can feel the essence and feel at home in any of those places. But of course, if you grow up and live in one culture, then you have particular karma quite often with that nation or culture, group karma, national karma. But of course, we're all becoming world citizens now too in our consciousness, and we all travel a lot as well. So yeah, interesting points there. And
may I say something about the conference and in general? It's a question I had before about memory, what you touched upon a little bit. And it is an excerpt from the Destiny of the Nations that struck me. And it is also about Europe and the continent and culture. Shall I read it? It's too short. All nations have much in the past which is apt to be forgotten, particularly if the lessons of greater spiritual growth have been learned. The United States must not forget either that she is a section of the entire European continent transplanted across the ocean, and the European history, successes, mistakes, and sins are here also. I think that many people are very apt to do, thus shifting responsibility. What is happening in the world today is a world happening, not a continental or local occurrence. Besides, there are some parts of the teaching talking about occult memory, and that for meditation, one of the goals of meditation is to remember, if I can say so, the memory, which is also one, or the mother of the 9 muses, Mnemosyne. She was venerated since the ancient times in her full importance, I think, because it's a faculty of mind and not of mind. soul, because soul has to remember, actually. It's not the memory that we have learned in schools or the common memory, the storing of information that we can recall. It's something which, to my opinion, brings what it is said in the esoteric astrology about in Scorpio sign, that it is a time when memory has to come forth, let's say, and face the dweller. So it is not something that is for us or for our groups or something. It's for whole Europe and for the whole world. And how we can help to do this with in our meditation, in this contemplative state that Alexander described and practiced for us so well. I think it's something we have to think about it and focus more specific in the future.
Yes.
And of course it did, sorry, just one word. And of course it has to do, like you said, with our previous incarnation, which is a law that the mass of humanity does not accept actually.
In that respect, I think that the 9 music origin of Europe created in the myth is really about the 9 petals of the Goig lotus. We know that Zeus, at the end of his creation, was asked to create some deities that could sing and celebrate the beauty of creation. And only with that operation of creating the 9 muses, the creation could be perfect. So we have in Agni Yoga this saying, not beauty, but the comprehension of beauty will say the word. So you inspire me, because now in the 5th race, we have with our manas, with our mind, to comprehend the harmony that we are here to express as a 4th hierarchy, as a 4th human kingdom. So we have to awake our 9 muses, our 9 petals, to celebrate harmony, the beauty of the 4th human hierarchy, which is a solar hierarchy. So only through that, transforming these conflicts, and with the help of the 9 deities of these muses, and Zeus, of course, which is Buddhi, we will reach the goal to express this harmony, which is the destiny of the human kingdom. So thank you for recalling the 9 muses, which is really one of the most important European original myths.
And indeed, the ancient wisdom, the ageless wisdom, is encoded throughout all the world mythologies, but particularly Greek mythology. And I just found that quote that Christina was referring to. And it is important because memory as an aspect of the dweller, we are facing the planetary dweller right now. This is what's happening. It's the most intense facing off between the planetary angel and the planetary dweller that we've ever experienced in recent memory. Excuse the pun. And I'm just going to read out just a few sentences here. As a consequence of the memory, the dweller on the threshold, memory in the sense here involved is not simply just a faculty of the mind, as is so often supposed, but it is essentially a creative power. It is basically an aspect of thought, and coupled with imagination is a creative agent, because thoughts are things, as well you know. From ancient recesses, excuse me, of the memory, from a deeply rooted past, excuse me, I'm choking on memories here. From ancient recesses of the memory from a deeply rooted past, which is definitely recalled, and from the racial and individual subconscious, or founded and established thought reservoirs and desires inherited and inherent there emerges from individual past lives and experience that which is the sum total of all instinctual tendencies, of all inherited glamours, and of all phases of wrong mental attitudes. To these, as they constitute a blended whole, we give the name of the dweller on the threshold. This dweller is the sum total of all the personality characteristics which have remained unconquered and unsubdued, and which must be finally overcome before initiation can be taken. Unquote. So as at the individual level, so on the global level. This is exactly what's happening with all the nations now, from the last Piscean cycle, really, the last 2,000 years of national evolution.
Yeah, but we are also awakening the higher memory, the memory of the Olympus where we came from. Not only the lunar memory.
Yeah.
It was Helen's hand raised some times ago. I don't know if Helen, you still would like to share.
There is also a chat by Judy Harrison, if someone wants to read.
Yes, go ahead then. Someone, Uta, would you like to read that?
Okay, just a moment. From Sabine or from Judy?
Judy.
Okay. When Alexander invoked the regent of Europe, Master R, the Lord of civilization, stood above Europe, and we were the magnetic ring of disciples around him, the Lord who brings in the Aquarian age, and the regent who links East and West through America and Europe.
Yes, excellent comment, Judy. Thank you. And Sabine says, to recognize each other as souls on their way to experience life in a special country, on a special continent, in a special moment of time, in pleasant or unpleasant situations, holding the I am greeting you as a wandering soul on her way towards fulfilling, fills my heart with tenderness. It is said that humanity is not loved by God because of her intelligence or strength, but for her ability to be tenderly with each other. Thank you for the safe space, meditation, teaching, and the first day. Thank you, Sabine.
Lynn has her hand up, Philip.
Who?
Lynn.
Go ahead, Lynn. His hand, I would say, if this is Lyndon.
Yeah,
Go
my
ahead,
pronouns are he and him. Yeah, it was a wonderful meditation. Something occurred to me in that meditation. But first, since we've brought up the dweller, reminds me of that law of healing in esoteric healing, the law of perfection, and how perfection draws forth imperfection or evil. And Master DK was saying that 200 years ago, which written somewhere around 1940s, which would make it middle of the 1700s, a number of humanity had taken initiation and decided that they would take the short and difficult path rather than the long and difficult path. And it created a stir. It caught even hierarchy by surprise. And then in 1775, as we're told by De Lorenzi, that Master Moria and Master K.H. In the conclave in 1775 proposed that the ageless wisdom be made public again. and the desire to progress quickly in human evolution drew forth a response from forces of darkness. And we had First World War, we had a Second World War. Now it seems we're in the midst of a Third World War of some type. And what occurred to me in the meditation was that the foundation of the new civilization will be that triangle of Russia and UK and the United States. And that, what better way to prevent that from happening than for the US and the UK to attack Russia and to create disharmony and discord. And so perhaps it's the reaction of forces of darkness to the coming reappearance and the coming emergence of humanity into a new civilization that precipitated that particular conflict with these three nations involved in the kind of conflict that we have now.
These are thorny questions and involve really ancient karma. We're told that World War I and II were the recapitulation of the Atlantean conflict that I mentioned this morning. So of the middle of the fourth root race, of the Atlantean root race, and now we're almost at the end of the fifth root race, recapitulating that whole period all over again, and refining and resolving with the same forces involved, of course, we're told.
Yeah, not forgetting also that is the will energy now that humanity has to handle in some way. So the direct contact Shambhala humanity, bypassing hierarchy, we are told. So we are in this phase. Well,
yes.
The most difficult, the most powerful, says Agni Yoga.
Yes.
So.
The calculated risk by hierarchy, treading a very fine line to increase, to accelerate the planetary evolution, yet the point of least resistance for the Shambhala force is for humanity to misuse it, to go into the lower centers.
That's why tenderness is so crucial. Loving kindness, not emotional at all, but scientific.
And it's also one of the laws of healing that the will cannot be used by a healer without love.
I particularly enjoyed Malvin's presentation today with his maps that really clarify some of the demographics of Europe, culturally, ethnically, and every other which way, but also the points in common between the nations of showing where, for instance, Leo at a personality level operates between nations, where Leo at a soul level operates between nations, where Aquarius, of course, functions, where Gemini functions. And these kind of patterns, I think, are the basis of working out future subjective resolutions of impasses between nations. Go ahead, Malvin.
Well, get the microphone here. what we'll probably see when the conflict is finished is the establishing connections along those astrological and ray lines. Like for instance, Italy's connection with Russia through Leo, because Italy has long had business connections within Russia, and the Russians have traditionally come to Italy on vacations, for instance, mostly around San Marino, but elsewhere as well. The people will guide this pretty much, because there are two things that are being challenged at the moment. One is the ideology that was brought about through France in the French Revolution, and the other is the technocracy that was also instituted then, because the French did that as well through their fifth and third rays. The people of every nation are waking up to the fact that the technocrats aren't doing things in their favor. Another thing that is happening is the Davos crowd, which represents the elites throughout the mostly the Western world, have been sidelined by this war. And what you're seeing now is things like the Great Reset aren't mentioned anymore. The Great Narrative that they decided to do is not mentioned anymore. We'll see that the technocrats fade into the background eventually, and a new, more Aquarian model emerge after 2025. And it will probably take up until 2025 for the present conflict to resolve itself. So we have a great opportunity here in terms of meditating for world peace, meditating for the triangles represented by these astrological and ray connections. It's a fruitful avenue of work, I would say.
Yes, to your point about the Davos crowd and the fizzling out, perhaps, of technocracy. One would hope that anyway. An excellent example is the Netherlands, an Aquarian soul, the only other Aquarian soul of those three Aquarian national souls, and their overwhelming response to being dictated to with their whole farming sector. A whole bunch of people were voted in that resisted that, and this is a great example of Aquarian groups being formed, joining together in a common cause, cooperating with one another, and that to me comes from the soul of that nation.
You also see similar things happening in France and the UK as well, with the huge strikes in the UK, the riots in France against Macron's attempt to raise the retirement age. And we're going to see this sort of thing grow across Europe, I would say, and eventually in the US as well.
Yes, I think people had a gutful.
Two people that have raised their hands, Deborah and Katja.
Go ahead, Deborah. First. You can hear us, Deborah?
Thank you. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. So much food for thought here, and for contemplation and consciousness. I spend a lot of time contemplating the triangle of Britain, Russia, and the US. And I think with the ingress of Pluto into Aquarius will give us a better opportunity to level down that top-down Capricorn, all those structures. It's really, you know, when people can travel and experience one another on their own soil, on different soil, to experience especially one another with the fourth ray coming in culturally, outside those structures, we have so much better opportunity to truly love one another and appreciate one another in the deepest ways. And so I think part of bringing forward in invoking and evoking the Aquarian souls, and the Gemini air, again, soul of Britain, has to do with just being like the ethers that pass through walls and structures and just live as that one light body of the planet, because it's those structures that are separating us, and taking the resources that belong to humanity and focusing them into the interests of the military industrial complex or the political oligarchs, or however you want to say it. But person to person, group to group, soul to soul, it's not difficult to experience our oneness. And going back to the 9 muses, and then the other reflection of that shadow is the 9-headed Hydra of Scorpio, right? And what Hercules did was lift the Hydra off the earth so that the Hydra could not draw sustenance any longer from the forces of nature and the etheric body of the planet. And I truly think we as a people all over the world need to collectively encircle and lift those structures that are ravaging the countryside wherever we are, off the planet, into the air of Aquarius and Gemini, into the intuition, into the experience of what already is truth, that the planetary etheric body and the light body of the Christ are unities that our separatism can rend holes in and injure, but cannot gainsay, cannot deny. And I think we need to leave the processes of denial of that oneness and really let our intuition in to show us how to manifest that on the ground. But first we have to lift that beast off the planet. That's my view. Thank you. Beautifully stated. Thank you, Deborah. Just before we get to Katja, I'd just like to your point about the Scorpio labor, it also reminds us of the Aquarian labor, where Hercules cleanses the Augean stables of muck that has been built up for centuries, and he diverts 2 rivers to flush the stables out. That's essentially what Pluto and Aquarius is about to do, I think, is to bring about a major cleansing
and it's going to be there for a long time, for about 20 odd years. So just to mention that briefly, and to catch you now if you are still here.
Yes, I'm still here. Can you see me? No, it's not. It's not working. Okay, but anyway, it's interesting because it's just all when Deborah was speaking, I was reminded that before Hercules lifted the Hydra, he kneeled, and it's I think one of the actions that are not very easy at the moment, and I hope that it won't be very harsh, this movement of Pluto cleansing the personality of humanity, this work in Scorpio, just for us to be able to accept what is, to kneel, and then lift.
To kneel in the humility that Alexander discussed before in his presentation.
Yep, I echo that. And also it seems like also listening to Martin Alvin, that this short and painful way includes the war, as much as it is not easy for me to accept that fact, but that it speeds up the process of development and also the process of degradation as well. And I don't remember where, I think it's in Cosmic Fire, Tibetan says that our logos is, it takes, I was astonished when I read that piece, when he says that it takes eons, the development takes eons and it's normal time. But our logos is sitting yoga. That's why our processes are being speeded up. So we have this opportunity. And also one of the important moments of today is when Alexander showed that view on the lake of the Sea of Galilee. I once asked myself, why is it so easy to be at Capernaum? It's just a different, you stay, I mean, I stay there, we stay there, and it's easy to breathe, it's easy to be. And then it occurred to me that there's this seated group consciousness there. It's where Jesus put together his group, his disciple. It's this moment of happening. And I think we can lean on it in our work, on this energy. And I believe it is the level from which we actually start working as a group. And so we should. Thank you. Thank you to all. And to Christina, thank you very much for this moment of opening that it's Europe, and Turkey. It's this widening of the perspective. It was a very special note with a very small comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Katja.
Shall I say something about our 5th Aryan root race to remind us that this race, we function under the law of cleavages. And I'm not mentioning it just to say that it is the cause of the fight, but to the cosmic, let's say, necessity of it, and to our understanding why it has to be like that for the evolution. And then comes the keynote for the sixth root race. It is of loving understanding. We try to match both and to fuse them. And Europe, if we suppose it is a plane of mind, and here I would like to say something from the cosmic fire, that the planes move from east to west, and the rays from north to south. Although it's not a complete image, it's symbolic. But I would like also to remind us that for the new group of world servers, it's an injunction to love humanity. This is like the keynote for the new group. And to love humanity, not in general, like it is. This is for me like a thorn, I would let's say. Like it is to see the reality, the double nature of humanity. And I hope in some time in the conference comes again this very interesting theme, what Philip said about the dark cloud hovering above this whole space of Russia and Greece and Yugoslavia and Middle East and all of this, to see why and how we can penetrate this. Or it's like a peplos, like a veil, but it's necessary actually. And we have to see why it is necessary for us to see clear. And it's not in the teaching, but I thought that there must be something that, like the will to see, the will to envision, that brings very special qualities inside the soul, individual, group soul, European soul, and all.
Thank you, Christina. When you have such crystallization and psychic muck that's accumulated for so many thousands of years in that particular, it's pretty much the shadow of all those ancient countries that you're talking about. I in fact am going to talk about it in one of my presentations, or touch upon it anyway. But it's one of the things that we work on in a glamour group that Uta and I are part of, and Helen and a couple of others here, that we have every week, because we realize that these old crystallized patterns are impossible to dislodge on the physical plane. They have to be worked at from the mental plane only to really break them up, dissolve them, disintegrate them, and it can't be done overnight. But in the last couple of years, we've felt we've made progress with this work, and I know many other groups around the planet, esoteric groups, are doing similar work in trying to dissolve these old forms on the mental plane.
It's worth noting this particular part of the cycle of Pluto through in its orbital cycle. It stays in Aquarius for 20 years, like we were saying. If history is any indication, it's going to be a revolutionary period, because the last time it was in this place was in 1778, and it was there until 1798. And we saw the wave of revolutions that swept through Well, we had the American Revolution, the French Revolution, the Haitian Revolution, the fall of monarchies throughout Europe. And we're going to see something similar on another turn of the spiral, I think, this time around too. So there again, you know, we need to stay vigilant in our meditations and see this period through.
Absolutely.
Hey, Philip, can I add something?
Go ahead, Miguel.
Kind of going off what Katya said about humility. You know, my background's in I guess my early part of life, I was upper middle class, and then I kind of chose to go be in the more hardcore spaces, and studying over my life, the intellectual people feel like they're better. The gangsters feel like they're better than the intellectuals. The finance people feel like they're better than this class, et cetera, et cetera. And I think over this period of time that we're going through, where there's so much love going to one side, so much hate going to the other, where, you know, there's divisions and groups, it is amplified kind of like an arrogance and an ego, you know, and it's almost a natural state, you know, when there's a push to feel like, hey, I've reached this state where I know more than this other side, or I know they know less than me. And so I think that idea, humility, is extraordinarily important as we go forward, instead of looking at us as knowing who are we asking what other people know to understand more of what they're processing. So I thought that was, you know, really important, the humility aspect of it. And right now it's like almost an orchestrated, you know, in physics, it's equal and opposite reaction. You know, the push against has created a reaction that wouldn't have naturally occurred if we just had dialogue about these crises in a normal way. So that's my addition.
Thank you, Miguel. I think this is the shadow of the fifth root race, pride of mind, and that lacks humility. And this is where all the technocrats and the elites are specifically at, with their well-developed mental capacities and lack of compassionate expression or development. So we're at the end of the day and of our allotted time, but I'm happy to keep talking if you all want to, or we can wrap it up. And I would suggest, if it's okay by you, Uta, to lead us through a short 5-minute alignment and completion for the day. As you help to open up this day, I think it's appropriate that you could close it, if that's not putting you on the spot.
Yes.
Brilliant. Thank you.
With joy.
So thank you very much, everyone, for coming today, and look forward to working with you all tomorrow. And I hand it over to you, Uta.
So let us just hold all together, all that we have been sharing this whole day, and appreciate this special opportunity of our togetherness and the possibility to work as a group, as if we are an outer ashram, opening ourselves to this possibility of closer co-work with our elders, in this case, those elders which are working with Europe and holding this alignment our own and with this group and with the higher co-workers that share with us this focus on Europe. Let's keep this line open and vibrant as we disperse now and pick up from here tomorrow.